Jesus' real name. Yeshua carries salvation frequency. Church changed it to break the power. Or Nag Hammadi. Texts reveal. Speaking, Yeshua activates DNA salvation code, hidden 2000 years his actual Aramaic name. Yeshua. The name itself pronounced Yeshua. For 2000 years, billions have called upon the name Jesus without realizing that this Greek-Latin translation stripped away the salvation frequency encoded in his actual Aramaic name. They deliberately replaced Yeshua with Latinized Jesus, not merely for linguistic convenience, but because the original name carried vibrational power that made individuals spiritually autonomous, eliminating their dependence on institutional mediation. Tonight we're resurrecting the true name, revealing the salvation frequency embedded in its Aramaic phonetics, and teaching you how to speak Yeshua in ways that activate the dormant capacities for liberation that translation has kept suppressed for millennia. You've been taught that names are arbitrary labels we assign to people and things, that Jesus in English, Jesus in Spanish, or Yeshua in Aramaic all refer to the same person, and therefore are interchangeable without consequence. But this understanding reflects modern materialist thinking that treats reality as purely physical and language as purely symbolic, missing entirely the mystical physics of sound that ancient traditions understood and deliberately employed. In Hebrew and Aramaic mystical traditions, names are not arbitrary, but carry within their phonetic structure the essence and function of what they name, operating as vibrational keys that unlock specific potentials in consciousness and reality. The name Yeshua is compound word in Aramaic, combining Yah, the sacred name of Source, with Shua, salvation, deliverance, liberation. The full meaning is Yah saves, or Yah is salvation, but more accurately understood as the frequency of Source operating as liberation. When you speak the name correctly, Yeshua, with its proper pronunciation and breath support, you're not merely referencing historical figure, but activating within your own consciousness and bioelectric field the pattern of salvation that the name encodes. The first syllable, Yah, opens the heart center. The second syllable, Shu, with emphasis, creates powerful vibration in solar plexus, where personal will and divine will meet, and the final R releases the activated pattern upward through throat and crown. The transition from Yeshua to Jesus wasn't innocent linguistic evolution, but deliberate alteration that served specific agenda of institutional control. When Christianity moved from Aramaic-speaking Jewish communities into Greek and Latin-speaking Roman world, translators faced choice: transliterate the name to preserve its sound and therefore its vibrational function, or translate it into forms that fit Greco-Roman phonetic patterns. They chose translation, and in doing so, they stripped the name of its sonic architecture. Jesus, in Greek Isus, and Latin carries none of the frequencies embedded in Yeshua, functioning instead as mere reference label rather than activation code. The Gospel of Philip from Nag Hammadi specifically warns about this dynamic, stating, "One single name is not uttered in the world, the name which the Father gave to the Son. It is the name above all things. For the Father's name cannot be spoken by anyone. It is for the Son alone to reveal it." Understanding what salvation meant in the mystical context, Yeshua operated from Requise, completely reframing the concept away from Christian theological interpretations. Salvation wasn't about avoiding hell after death or securing place in heaven through correct belief and moral behavior, but about liberation from the dimensional prison of archontic control, while still embodied in physical form. The Apocryphon of John, discovered at Nag Hammadi, describes how archons created material reality as trap to capture and harvest consciousness, installing in humans what the text calls counterfeit spirit that keeps awareness locked in narrow bandwidth, perception unable to access higher dimensional truth. Salvation in this Gnostic framework means deactivating the counterfeit spirit and reactivating the authentic divine spark that exists beyond archontic reach, restoring connection to source consciousness that the prison system was designed to obscure. Yeshua came to transmit the technology for accomplishing this liberation, and his name itself functions as one of the primary tools in that technology. When spoken with proper intention and technique, the name creates specific effects in your energy field that begin dismantling the control mechanisms and awakening dormant capacities for perceiving and operating beyond the programmed limitations. The sonic structure of Yeshua creates three-stage activation process. The opening Yeh establishes connection with source frequency, literally invoking the sacred name Yeh that mystics understood as the breath of creation itself. The emphasized Shu creates powerful vibration that disrupts the dense frequencies in solar plexus, where most people carry accumulated trauma, fear, and the energetic hooks through which archontic entities maintain control. This disruption doesn't create chaos, but rather breaks up stagnant patterns, preparing the field for reorganization at higher coherence. The final awe completes the circuit by releasing the activated pattern through upper centers, allowing the salvation frequency to establish itself in your consciousness without being immediately pulled back down into density. The Pistis Sophia records that Yeshua taught his disciples to use his name as invocation during spiritual practice, explaining that speaking the name correctly creates protective field that archontic entities cannot penetrate, because the frequency is fundamentally incompatible with their nature. This wasn't superstition or belief-based magic, but precise understanding of how consciousness and vibration interact to determine what can and cannot access your field. Stay until the end to learn the complete Yeshua invocation practice that activates the salvation frequency in your DNA. The technique, preserved in Gnostic texts, will be revealed after we decode why the Church suppressed this knowledge. The transition from Yeshua to Jesus served multiple functions for the institutionalization of Christianity under Roman authority beginning in the 4th century with Constantine's conversion and the Council of Nicaea. The most obvious function was linguistic. Translating Aramaic names into Greek and Latin made the religion more accessible to Greco-Roman populations who would struggle with Semitic phonetics. But the deeper function, whether consciously recognized by all translators or operating through systemic imperatives, was neutralizing the practical power embedded in the original name while maintaining the appearance of continuity with the tradition. Orthodox Christianity that emerged from the councils and became state religion needed populations to be dependent on institutional mediation for salvation, not capable of activating liberation directly through their own practice of techniques. Yeshua, if individuals could simply speak his name correctly with proper intention and activate salvation frequency in their own consciousness, bypassing priests, sacraments, and ecclesiastical authority entirely, the whole structure of religious control collapses. The Church needed Jesus to be object of worship and belief, not tool of personal empowerment. The Gospel of Thomas preserves different understanding of Yesh's mission, one that early Church Fathers explicitly condemned as heretical, saying 108 records, him saying, "Whoever drinks from my mouth will become like me. I myself shall become that person, and the hidden things will be revealed to him." This suggests not worship of external savior, but transmission of consciousness technology that allows the practitioner to embody the same frequency of liberation Yeshua demonstrated. When you speak Yeshua correctly, you're not calling upon distant deity, but activating within yourself the salvation pattern that the name encodes. The deliberate alteration of the name participated in broader pattern of suppressing practical, mystical technologies while preserving only belief systems and moral codes. The Church removed from canon texts like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Philip, and the Secret Book of John precisely because these texts contained practical instructions for direct spiritual experience and liberation. What remained were texts emphasizing faith, obedience, and institutional authority as paths to salvation, with the name Jesus functioning as symbol to believe in rather than frequency to embody. The complete Yeshua invocation practice preserved in Gnostic lineages begins with establishing proper internal state through breath and intention, preparing your consciousness to receive and integrate the salvation frequency without resistance or dissipation. Find comfortable seated position with spine erect, hands resting on knees with palms facing upward in receptive posture. Close your eyes and bring attention to your breath, allowing it to deepen naturally without forcing. After several cycles, begin to visualize brilliant light descending from above, entering through your crown and filling your entire body with luminosity from head to feet. Speaking the name Yeshua aloud, using the proper Aramaic pronunciation, Yesh. The first syllable Yah should be spoken from the heart center with sense of opening and offering, vibrating through your chest. The second syllable Shu carries the emphasis, spoken powerfully from the solar plexus with sense of breaking through or dissolving obstacles. The final syllable releases upward through throat and crown, with sense of completion and surrender. The entire name should take approximately 3 to 4 seconds to speak, synchronized with your exhale. Repeat the name 7 times in succession, maintaining focus on the sensations and energetic movements the sound creates in your body. You may notice heat or tingling in specific areas, spontaneous emotional releases, or sudden clarity of perception as the salvation frequency begins disrupting old patterns and activating dormant capacities. After the 7th repetition, sit in silence for several minutes, observing without trying to control or interpret what you're experiencing. The silence allows integration of the frequency you've activated through the invocation. Advanced practice involves speaking the name while visualizing specific intentions: freedom from particular fear or limitation, healing of relationship or situation, activation of creative capacity or intuitive perception. The name Yeshua functions as carrier wave that delivers your intention directly to the field of infinite possibility, bypassing the filters and limitations of ordinary consciousness. The Pistius, Sophia describes this as sealing the invocation with the name, using YESHUAS frequency to ensure your intention reaches its target without being deflected by our interference or dissolved by doubt and mental noise. The act of reclaiming Yeshua and speaking it correctly represents more than linguistic precision or historical declaration of spiritual autonomy that directly challenges the systems of control built on your dependence and ignorance. Leave your light in comment. Yeshua activates my salvation frequency 777. Every time you speak the name as Jesus in English or any translated form, you're unconsciously participating in the suppression of your own liberation technology. Using the neutralized version authorities provided instead of the activated original the Master transmitted. This isn't about rejecting the translated names as evil or invalid, but recognizing them as diminished versions of something far more potent. When you begin incorporating Yeshua into your daily spiritual practice, using it during meditation, as protection, invocation, or as blessing over situations and relationships, you'll notice effects that the translated names simply don't produce. The specificity of the Aramaic phonetics creates measurable changes in your bioelectric field, heart rate variability, and brainwave patterns that researchers are beginning to document with modern instruments. But beyond measurable physiological effects, practitioners consistently report experiences of breakthrough where previously insurmountable obstacles suddenly dissolve. Long-standing patterns of limitation release without struggle, and sense of connection to Source becomes immediate and undeniable. The Gospel of Truth from Nag Hammadi states, "Say, then, from the heart that you are the perfect day, and in you dwells the light that does not fail." This is the salvation. Yeshua came to activate not future reward, but present recognition of your true nature as consciousness, carrying divine light that no archontic system can ultimately contain or extinguish. Speaking his name correctly awakens remembrance of this truth, not as intellectual concept, but as lived frequency that reorganizes your entire experience of reality from imprisonment to liberation, from separation to union, from fear to love. You have the name now, not as theological trivia, but as practical tool waiting for your use. The question isn't whether Yeshua works as salvation frequency. The ancient texts and contemporary practitioners provide ample evidence that it does. The question is whether you'll test it in your own experience, speaking the name with intention and observing what transforms. Your liberation isn't distant promise requiring faith in unprovable claims, but present possibility activated through correct use of the technology transmitted by the Master whose true name carries the frequency of salvation itself. Subscribe to Jesus Revelations and hit the notification bell for more hidden teachings on the sacred names and frequencies that activate liberation. If this revelation resonated with you, begin speaking the name Yeshua correctly in your daily practice and observe how quickly your reality shifts from limitation to liberation. Share this video with those ready to reclaim the true name and its power. See you in the next revelation, where we decode the other sacred names the Church translated away. May the frequency of Yeshua restore your remembrance of who you truly are beyond all programming and imprisonment.